Welcome to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Denise Rolark-Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer. For years, we've been told that increasing jail and prison sentences for people who break the law are the only ways to keep our city safe. But we know different. We know that the real effective safety solutions are being developed by local groups here in Washington, D.C. So today we're talking about some of those real solutions that will stop violence before it happens and actually get us the safety we want. The Washington Informer is sitting down with Washingtonians who are breaking the cycle of violence by investing in prevention-first solutions through their roles as faith leaders, business leaders, data and coordination experts, and community mentors. This roundtable today, which is sponsored by Public Welfare Foundation, will highlight the solutions that actually help our city achieve safety and how everyone in our city can play a vital role. I will also add that we are broadcasting today from the beautiful True Reformer building here at 1200 U Street Northwest in the Langford Auditorium. So let's dive in. I'm happy to be joined by Thomas Penny, Kristy Love, Eric Weaver, and Reverend Delonte Golston. But before we dig into our conversation, let's start with introductions. And I'll start with you, Reverend Golston. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. My name is Pastor Delonte Golston. I pastor Peace Fellowship Church. It's in Ward 7 in Deanwood. I'm originally from Uptown, Georgia Avenue, Park Road, that area. Got into work of prevention, really not voluntarily, but when some friends of mine started to get killed when I returned to DC, and I fought kind of getting engaged until my nephew almost got killed. 2018, got shot 5 times up off of Georgia Avenue, I've been organizing around gun violence prevention and police violence in LA before I moved back to the city. And it became clear that churches had to be organized in DC to end community violence. So we started organizing peace walks in our neighborhood with local clergy right in Deanwood, and then started training different congregations around the city to do the same thing. And then within the last couple of years, we started a nonprofit. It's called Justice Peace Ministries, and we focus on healing the healer so that people show up safe in the work of gun violence prevention and are coming from a place of healing. We started an initiative called Fund Peace Now that focuses on training and hiring and finding entrepreneurship opportunities for youth. So
I look forward to digging into that a little bit more, particularly from the faith-based perspective. But as a native Washingtonian, I have to ask the question, what high school did you go to?
Oh, I went to Banneker Senior High School, Paul Junior High School, and Brent Elementary School. We can go all the way down.
That's real DC. We're going to move now to Kristy Love. Kristy?
Yes, so thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I'm Kristy Love, Executive Director of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. It's a mouthful, or the CJCC. And the CJCC is actually a group or a council of local and federal criminal justice and public safety leaders. And as the executive director, it's my job to lead the staff to support the work of that council. And we support them in several ways. First, we facilitate automated information sharing, and that's among 30 local and federal. And I say federal because we know DC is unique in terms of our criminal justice system, but we facilitate information sharing among all of those agencies. We also do research and analysis, and that's probably what we're best known for publicly. We monitor public safety trends. We look at how well the justice system is operating. The third thing we do, we facilitate interagency collaboration. So our members have identified a number of priority areas, including violent crime and juvenile justice, substance abuse, mental health, and also corrections. And then lastly, we provide training and technical assistance. We'll bring in subject matter experts who can speak to successful and effective efforts to address some of the public safety challenges we have here.
Wonderful. Okay.
Name is Thomas Penny. I'm president of Donohoe Hospitality, and During the day, I run a hotel company. We have 20 hotels with a large footprint here in the DMV. In addition to that, Baltimore, Charlottesville, and Las Vegas. But my interest in making sure the community is safe is kind of rooted in not making the right decisions as a young man myself. And I changed trajectories when I lost my only brother, only sibling. When he was 20 years old, he was killed in a car accident, and started to make different choices. And I just remember growing up, my father saying to me, son, doesn't matter what you have in your yard. If your brother or sister doesn't have enough, the struggle continues. And so ever since I've been in the hotel business, I've been laser focused on making sure young people and adults with returning citizens have opportunities. And it's been something that's been deeply rewarding, because many of these folks have kind of transitioned into leadership positions within our organization and have made invaluable contributions.
Amazing. Okay, Eric.
I'm Eric Weaver, native Washingtonian, born and raised here. I'm also a returned citizen, went to jail at a young age and was incarcerated for 22 years. When I came home, I started an organization called NAARC, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Returned Citizens. And initially it was just advocating for the rights of returned citizens. And then I started seeing more of a need. So many people were coming home and needed help. So we started like a support group, almost like an NA type support group, to help returned citizens overcome some of the barriers that they faced. And in the course of this, violence prevention started being a thing again, and I saw an opportunity, because I knew a lot of guys that were incarcerated wanted to come home and give back, but I also saw an opportunity to get them employed doing this work. So to me, it was a no-brainer. The people that wanted to come back and help their communities be able to get paid for doing it, mainly because they couldn't find jobs nowhere else. And so I remember when Cure Violence came here to the city and tried to introduce, D.C. is so territorial, nobody wanted them. We was like, it was a big meeting, and they was like, we from D.C., we don't need nobody from Chicago doing nothing here. But I looked at it a little different. I saw, man, it's money. We can put money in the streets to do this work, and also I can get some returned citizens hired. So I think at the time I walked across the picket line, so to speak, to get this work done. And I think because of the relationship I had in the community, it wasn't a whole lot of issues about it or pushbacks or beefing, because it was me, and then people saw the vision, and now it grew into what it is now. And in the city with, I think it's millions of dollars put into the city for violence prevention. At the time, it wasn't about $365,000 that they was putting in it. And that was, 8 years ago now. So here we are.
Wow, okay. We're going to have a conversation. I have a lot of questions for folks, but this is a conversation. And I'm supposed to come to you, Kristy, to talk about data, but I want to ask Eric a question really quickly, because 20 years is a long time. And how old were you when you?
17.
So I guess my question would be hard for you to answer as it relates to what you saw in the city when you left, and what, coming back, wondering if there were the resources that were available, programs that like the one you've created. Did you know that those existed before?
Didn't really know nothing at the time. I was still just a kid. I had stopped going to school, and so I didn't get my GED and college degrees. I got all that while I was in prison, vocational trades and all that. So I kind of programmed myself when I was in there, but I did kind of keep my ears on the street, talking to a lot of people about different things that was going on, and I think having that family support prepared me to come out here and at least try to give myself a chance not to go back to jail and do the right thing.
Yeah, because as we know, the city has come through hell.
Yeah, I was shocked, coming and expecting to see Chocolate City, and it wasn't Chocolate City no more when I came back.
Yeah. Kristy, I want to start with you sharing a little bit about the trends the data that, shows about safety in D.C. over the last 5 years, what you've been seeing or what the data shows?
So I think it's good news. Thankfully, and I tend to say if you asked me this question 2 years ago, the news may not have been so great. It wasn't great. But if we look at 2025 year to date, and we have data going back to 2018, we have our lowest levels of reported crime in 2025 than we've had in the past 8 years. And I should say at least the past 8 years. Our data is 2018, but I talked to others who have data that go back a bit further. They'll say we're at our lowest level since in 25 or 30 years, and that's across the board. It's all crime, it's property crime, it's violent crime. And just to offer some numbers in comparison to even where we were last year when we were already seeing a decline, it's 11% decrease in all crime, 28% decrease compared to this time last year in violent crime, and even with homicides, which certainly are the most concerning, we're down 21% from last year.
So with this positive data, the trends that we're seeing, I'm just wondering how it has impacted sort of the work that you all are doing in the community. Reverend Golson, you want to talk about, have there been any shifts in your work?
Sure. Well, we've been doing these walks in the community for the last 7 years, and I think what we've seen is a lot of displacement because we've been in a lot of neighborhoods that have been targeted by HUD to shut communities down. And if I'm honest, a lot of the increase in violence has been a result of that displacement. People thinking that it was wise to shut down one housing project and take residents from that complex and put it in with neighbors from rivaling neighborhoods. We've definitely seen that. But in terms of in terms of what's actually started to bring numbers down, I think it's really been just listening well to what residents actually say they need. And so from our perspective, when we would do walks, people over and over again said that they needed jobs, over and over again said they were struggling with their mental health. And so people would routinely ask for prayer, which is a sign that your spirit is dejected. There's something that's happening on the inside of you based upon lack of access to resources, your lived environment. And so I think what we've started to see that has changed is we've taken listening to people and turned that into some advocacy, because when we would call, for example, the Department of Behavioral Health, they have a mobile crisis team, and 5 years ago, we would make those calls, 6 years ago, we would make those calls. It would take 2 hours for somebody to come out. So if somebody's in distress and you're supposed to be a emergency mobile crisis team, it wasn't too much that was mobile or emergency or crisis oriented about how that was actually happening in real time. But through organizing clergy to actually come out to council meetings and say, hey, look, we've made those calls and we're not seeing results, or to have that conversation with Dr. Bazron or Dr. Moise, the people who are in position to make those changes, we've seen those response times and also through adequate funding for the programs like that itself. We've seen much better response times, and I think that's been a major help. I think it's been good to see improvements with project empowerment. When we place people through a Department of Employment Services program, and if people don't get placed, then they get discouraged. And so I think it's been good to see better coordination in terms of providing job resources. And I think it's been so great to have our VIs on the ground with us, so that if there's a situation that we can't handle or that is outside of our training, I'm from uptown, so I'm not necessarily going to understand every single situation in Benning Terrace or in Lincoln Heights or in Richardson Dwellings, Clay Terrace. Although I have family in those neighborhoods, it helps to be able to have somebody who just got home who I can call and can kind of help us deal with some of those issues. We can be the church and provide resources. We can make referrals, but it's having that entire village concept, if that makes sense, working together that I think has really helped to start to drive things down.
No, that's that's what people have asked for, and it sounds like you all are helping to drive that response. And then Thomas, when people come in, to your programs, are they? First of all, do they make it through? Is it easier? What are you seeing?
So what we have seen, if there is someone who's a returning citizen who's done more than 10 years, they tend to be our most tenured team members. They value opportunities differently. They know how hard they are to come by, and they're not going to put them in jeopardy. So they tend to stay longer and be more successful. I would say over the past 18 months, we had seen more folks get placed in our hotels, more folks get placed in the industry. I would say April forward, things here in D.C. area have changed with the DOGE-related cuts in government spending, and so now the industry is not as healthy as it once was. So we got folks not getting hours, and now we got some folks unemployed. So, we're having to deal with the impact of this present moment.
Wow. Yeah, well, we hope, that the trend continues. I think that's what we all want that. Our whole communities want that. And, Eric, because you are on the ground as well, when people say crime is there's been a reduction in crime, the incidence of crimes in certain areas, the data we just heard, how is the people in the community that you deal with, how are they responding to that?
Well, we never hear those numbers, so we just stay working regardless of.
You don't hear them because you've got work to do?
I hear them because I'm related to you all and I get it, but I'm just saying the people on the ground don't necessarily hear whether the numbers are down or whatever, because they still got to do the work. Just because they down today don't mean to ease up on the work. We got to keep on working in the community. I think with things like employment and stuff, some of the stuff I was looking at is like, I made bad decisions when I was young because of my situation at home. Like, I've been a part of being evicted. I've been a part of coming home and trying to make something to eat out of just a loaf of bread and some jelly and stuff. And though I'm doing better, my kids are doing better, it's still some families that have that situation. And it's kids that's in that situation that still gonna make bad decisions. So them the ones we still try to get to before they even make those decisions, because we know what their household is like.
Mm-hmm. And we look at the trends too. I mean, one of the, I think like carjackings, for example, are down, right? So what would you accredit that reduction in? What's working?
I think some of the stuff, like I was mentioning earlier, I think a lot of the outreach and the connections that people have in the community has played a part in it, definitely with everything that just went on recently, where the city was under siege from the political side. I think that the resources and the people coming together and kind of almost just grabbing them by the hand and just holding them back, I think that trickled down to some of the stuff, and they start seeing that it was things that they can go without doing. And I think with social media stuff, they get caught up in some of that stuff sometimes and think that that's what they need to be doing all the time. But in this time when we kind of went out in the streets real hard and we galvanized and we grabbed them, we held them, I think that played a part in it.
I do think there's greater collaboration. Even with Eric and I, there was a guy some years ago who came home from prison, started working with us, transitioned up to a supervised role with us. And then Eric had an opportunity for him, and Eric took him away from it, And so I think there's a community of folks that are in the streets, and there's a community of folks that are committed to hiring them that have worked together. And the best way to stop a bullet is with a job. And so it's about getting folks placed and putting them in a position to feed their families. To the extent they can do that, crime goes down significantly.
I want to go back to faith leaders in a minute, but since you brought up the issue of jobs and businesses, I'm a small business owner, and so, I mean, if you were to advise the business community here on ways that they, well, one, what have they been doing besides what you all are doing that seems to be having an impact? But what could business owners or business leaders be doing?
I would strongly encourage my colleagues in business. I think there were folks in the business community who had a strong opinion on the crime bill. I think they need to have a stronger opinion on the job side of things. And so that is where the work is. And to the extent that we can create opportunities for folks to come into our respective businesses, the crime problem dissipates. We don't have a crime problem. And so I would just strongly encourage them to really engage in a significant way to help get folks from a position of instability to stability, and all of that rests with their ability to feed their family and get access to jobs. There's talent here. You know, many of the individuals that may have went to prison, they had skills. They just were not using them the right way. And if we can allow for them to use them the right way, our businesses will be better for it. So I would just strongly encourage them to engage with the same energy, the same voice that they engage on the crime bill and engage on the employment side of things.
And the collaboration part that, you know, I'd love to hear is for the faith community, Reverend Golson, how it steps in. I mean, a small business owner could hire someone, but then supervising sometimes is a challenge. Training is a challenge. But the collaboration can, how would you envision that working to support, you know, employment opportunities for folks?
You know, this is a very timely question because that's actually something we're working on right now. We're currently putting together a project that we're calling Gen Peace, and it is designed to, for the first time in 50 years, to expand the summer youth employment program in the district. Anybody you know that grew up in this city, our first job came from Marion-Barry, right? And so, but the kind of tragedy is that I'm 45, right? I was with a group of pastors this past weekend. One of the pastors was in her 70s. Her first job was also with Summer Youth Employment Program, and it has not been expanded since. And so the idea behind Gen Peace is to take the current Gen Z, Gen Y, and to provide after-school jobs, and where the faith community, so the business community, I believe, as Brother Penny was saying, really has to lead that, right? The business community needs to be, if Lululemon, Tiffany's, you know, was concerned about robberies at one point, then let's come right back and say, hey, the same kids that were a menace, we're gonna mentor our former menace and give them an opportunity, right? Because if you know all the data, the National Center for Criminal Justice, well, Lord, what is it? NCJCC.
CJCC.
Kristy's organization.
Get it right. Tell them what it is.
National Criminal Justice Coordinating Council.
Right, okay.
Criminal Justice Coordinating Council.
Everybody remember
Oh,
that.
Lord, help me. They just came up with a report just, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, where they interviewed kids that were a part of YRS and were in and out of YSC, and they asked them that basic question: what's behind your history of violent crime? And to the letter, to the number, they all said the same thing. Economic security is what's, and I know that from I had an office for 7 years in IDEA Charter School, and I would have kids coming out of my office all the time, and they would say, "Hey, Pastor, you know, I robbed this lady, or I hit somebody upside the head, or I robbed somebody at gunpoint." I would say, "Hey, what's?" And they were all, every kid would say the same thing. Well, my mom, you know, struggling with her rent, or, you know, we only had no food in the house. You know, Angela Davis talked about this when she was organized. She talked about people rob people because of poverty, right? And so how do you teach a person to fish? Is through giving them an opportunity to not be the problem, but be a part of the solution, right? So, yes, we need mental health supports. You know, yes, we need pastors to come and pray. Souls need to be saved. I 100% believe in salvation, and people come in bodies. bodies live in communities. Communities have dealt with trauma and economic instability. So how do you change that? How do you heal a whole person without making sure they have what they need? I mean, this is not rocket science. This is not nothing anybody's saying around this circle is like you need a PhD to do this. So the time for it is we're beyond the time for it. And so we know that when you invest in children, when you invest in returning citizens, it works.
One thing that Marion would do when he was mayor, if business leaders wanted to meet with him downtown, instead of meeting them downtown, he would tell them, meet me on Martin Luther King Avenue. And so if the Commanders want a stadium deal, come to MLK and let's meet at MLK and let's talk about your responsibility to the city. And so if you begin to force business leaders, when they're coming to talk to you about something they want to talk about, you force them to come into communities to see their responsibility, it will begin to condition them around what's required to be successful in the city and to have a long-standing relationship with the city.
Absolutely. And you know, the first people that signed up after the stadium deal to come on our peace walks was the AFL-CIO. They were the first people to call me and say, hey, Pastor, I heard about your peace walks. Because they know the opportunity is coming, and they don't want to sit back and wait for a brother to come to them. They say, oh, we already got Faith Leaders out engaging with brothers and sisters on the street. We'll go to you, SEIU, AFL-CIO. They was quick to say, oh, before the ink was even dry on the deal, they was quick. They say, oh, we know what we need to do. We need to go out to the block and make sure the brothers and sisters on the block actually have the resources they need and get a union job with union benefits, right?
Well, I know a business owner who sits in high places who really needs to come out into the community to see what impact his policies are having, especially when that person is not really paying attention to the data that your organization talks about, Kristy. But be that as it may, I'm wondering, it's almost like having a child or a student who you're constantly disciplining for doing bad things, right? And finally they stop, but they're not rewarded for doing positive things. And the data is becoming more positive, but we're not talking about it. And I think that's why this conversation is so important, because not only do we have to let ourselves know within this community that what we're doing is working, but the community at large needs to know this as well. And so how do we get this message out? How do we let people know? Thanks for being on this program. That's one way we're going to do it.
I just think with all the platforms that are used to talk bad about what's going on in the city, we got to get on those same platforms and talk about this, because even when you all was just saying that, I was trying to remember the numbers, because I'm going to post it when I get back, 23% on the homicides. And so I think we got to put that out there, because on social media and all that, all they know is what they see. So they hear one shooting or two shoots in a week and they say, oh, the city on fire. And we need to counter that with, we actually aren't. Like, we down 23% in this over the last 10 years or 8 years, as you said. So I think we got to do a better job of telling that story.
There's some young people doing extraordinary things that nobody's talking about them. They don't have a chance to share their experience. We had a young man who graduated from Ballew's Academy of Hospitality and Tourism. And right after he graduated, he started attending Virginia State University. Obviously, the pandemic happens. They closed Virginia State University. He's now back in the neighborhood. Needless to say, one afternoon I got a call, and he was incredibly emotional. He said he was in Upper Marlboro Detention Center. He said he had to return to his neighborhood, and it was unsafe, and he got caught with a gun. Needless to say, made a call to the state's attorney. Don't know what she did, but he called me the next day, and he was headed back to school. And he's since graduated from Virginia State University. He was at a management trainee program in San Antonio with Hyatt. Now he's in a leadership position at a Hyatt in Atlanta. And so it was an inflection point for him. You know, he knew his neighborhood was unsafe. That's why he wanted to stay at school. But when he was forced to come home, he had to protect himself and got caught up. But had the state's attorney not been gracious enough to extend him another opportunity, you know, he could be in a different situation today.
I do know that in the data community, sometimes it's difficult. And we'll try to put the numbers out there, but if someone has personal and recent personal experience with violent crime, they don't want to hear your numbers. Because yes, 23% reduction, but this just happened to me the other day. What are you going to do about it? So I do think it's a delicate balance that especially government agencies going into communities sharing these type of numbers have to, you know, consider. But we do have to get it out there because you all in the community are doing the hard work, which is helping to make this happen. And like you said, instead of just constantly talking about what's wrong, in a way, it's a reward for everything that you all are doing.
That's what I was going to say too, because when I said that the people on the ground don't know the numbers, but it's also like letting them know that their work isn't in vain if they know what the numbers are. If they be like, man, it's down 20, you play it a part in getting these numbers down. So I think that helps the community as well.
I brought up the topic of carjackings, but let's talk a little bit about gun violence. And, you know, what have you all reported? What is the data showing as it relates to that, especially since both of you all talked about, you know, guns?
Gun violence is down. You know, most homicides are committed with a gun, so homicides are down. That portion of gun violence is down. Robbery is really the most common violent crime committed with a gun. And so we've even seen steep decreases in robbery, and carjackings fall into the robbery category. And last I recall, I think in a report received from MPD, carjackings are down like by more than 50%. So, you know, progress is being made, I think, both on the community side. Certainly, you know, law enforcement does play a role in this as well. But I feel like I'm seeing more collaboration between community and government and law enforcement. Everybody's starting to work better together to try to make this happen.
So I don't know, I'm gonna say something that might not be possible. You know, with this administration, there appears to be a little bit of an interest in folks who've been incarcerated. We have to find a way to take advantage of any openings with the administration to better our communities. And you know, I struggle to find hope most days, but you know, maybe there's an opportunity.
Well, you know, I think you got a good point. I think there's the woman that he was able to get out. I can't remember her name, but I think she's his czar. You know, so getting to her could be one of those options. But going back to that, I mean, that's you know, one of the opportunities that you see that exists. And I'm wondering if you all are thinking, as you're seeing some progress, but with the work that you're doing, you know, what's missing? You know, where is it funding that's missing? Is it people working in these spaces with you that's missing? Is it the schools, the faith? We talked about business and the faith community, but what's missing? Eric?
I just think just the resources, and I know that be broadly said sometimes, but like we said, with these households, it's hard to really take the guns off these people's hands and stuff like that if we ain't put nothing positive in their hand. So I just think as long as people struggle, as long as we got poverty, that, you know, you're gonna have people that's trying to survive. I think anybody that when you take away their money, it's gonna do what they gotta do to survive, to feed their kids, or whether it's rob somebody, go in the store to steal a loaf of bread. And if we, even sometimes, that's why we try to not just look at the individual, we try to look at their whole household, because like if we found a kid that had COVID, but the whole house got COVID, we treated this kid and sent him back home, and everybody in the house has COVID, he's gonna have COVID again. So I think we really got to do a better job, but we need the help, we need the resources to get the mother a job, get the father who just came home from jail, want to be a part of it, get him a job and let him stabilize his family. So I think that's the missing piece to businesses and government. Take a chance on return citizens, change some of the hiring policies, do some record selling. Those type of things would help get people stabilized in their families.
So someone who we both, I'm sure, have a fond affection for, Dr. Lerone Bennett used to say, he said one time, you know, whatever you're doing, you're not doing enough. Whatever you're working on, you're not working enough. Whatever you're reading, writing, you're just not doing enough. I just feel like in this moment as a community, we have some challenges that are probably unlike anything I've seen in my 50 years. The question is, how do we respond to those challenges? I feel like I got to do more, especially in this moment. And I think we all got to sign up to do more because, again, it's not going to get better in the near term. The question is, how are we going to respond as a community? And so we got to hire more folks. We got to talk more, communicate more, collaborate more. This is one of those moments in time where it's all hands on deck if we're going to change the course for some of the folks who desperately need it. So I think we all got to do more in this moment.
You know, Thomas, that's one of the things that we hear a lot, right? Some awful thing happens in the city, even when people come out for, you know, for marches or walks, peace walks, and the chorus is, we got to do something. They got to do something. It's always the they or the we got to do something.
I would say it's me.
Okay.
Right? I would say.
But what are some of those somethings, you know, that you you know, you've been proud to see besides, you know, the work that you're doing, but, you know, just.
So I would say for me, you know, we got 6 academies in the city, about 500 kids, you know, learn about the hotel business. But I got to talk to Weaver more. I got to talk to folks in the space that he's in more so we can help more men and women, particularly those returning citizens, get connected to work, especially right now. Like, this is a critical moment where days matter, weeks matter, and we got to figure out how do we build a group of employers that are more committed to ever than helping them get connected to jobs.
I think was to your point, and right now with everything else going on with the federal shutdown, all the people get losing their jobs, it pushes the return citizen population even further back in the line because now they got to compete with these people who just got laid off for these federal jobs that have this extensive resume and all these skills. So our line just got longer. So we really need more help from the business community to understand it and be willing to give those guys a chance.
How much does that bother you, though? I mean, I think we're all kind of like, you know, looking at folks that we know who are on the edge, right? And because of these shutdowns, and so now you're saying the returning citizen community is going to get pushed back.
Yeah, and it bothers me because I know a lot of them, and a lot of them come to me, you know, thinking we're hoping I'm Oprah Winfrey where I could just say, you get a car, and I can't. And so it bothers me because they literally come to me with tears in their eyes and like, I'm trying. And pretty much, I know what that I'm trying and them tears mean. If something don't happen soon, I'm forced to go back and do something else. And so that is like, it bothers me like where I'm like wrecking my brain and like, dang, I gotta find something for this guy.
So where do you find, I mean, what is your go-to to find
one,
those
we hire a lot of people. I think, you know, NAARC, we may have 100 employees and 85% of them, 90% is return citizens. So that's one thing. I do have relationships. I've been able to call Tom. I've had relationships with Project Empowerment because sometimes I was like, I just need to get them with something right now until we can find something else. But something else I push because like Thomas said, it's a lot of talented people that's coming home. So like anything done in my house is done by return citizens. If you painting, if you're an electrician, you're a plumber, and I try to build like a network with all my buddies. Like, man, y'all need your grass cut, hire return citizens. You need electric because we got some good talented people to do it. So just you know, them the little things I try to do just to play my part in it.
So would they find, if somebody was listening and they say, yeah, I do need it's going to snow. Who do I call? Senior citizens, who do I call to get my snow removed? How would they call?
I mean, they would call me, of course, I got people, but I have
now,
always.
We need an Angie's list of return
know.
And that's what I've been saying that for some years, and it just maybe like Thomas said, I need to do more. Maybe I need to just stop saying it and stop having it in my head and really create this list of, okay, here are our returned citizen plumbers, here are returned citizen electricians and stuff, because a lot of them, they, you know, they certified, they done went through the channels to get some of those things, but it's still, you know, hard for them to get jobs other than, you know, these jobs. So I think that's a good thing to maybe push.
Reverend Golson, the same thing with you. I mean, you know, when you do these walks, you meet these people. Of course, you don't know how extensive the faith community has really stepped up, because you figure you've got a lot of business owners that are sitting in these pews who, that's where collaboration steps in. Have you done anything creative like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really grateful to the Ward 7 faith leaders, the Ward 8 faith leaders. There's a Ward 4 group of clergy. And, you know, when I put out a call, somebody needs furniture, like we were in a home in Congress Park a couple of years ago, and the floors were so sticky in the floor that my feet were sticking to the floor, and I have to say, I mean, I've traveled around the world, and I was shocked, and it made me understand, you know, the kids that we were visiting, they were 14 and 15, and you know, they were shooters, and then I began to understand, oh, like there's some serious issues at work in this particular home, and I was able to place a phone call to a network of pastors, and they were able to, you know, they had a clothing closet, and one church had an entire warehouse of furniture, and you know, it was a struggle at first. I will be honest. I had to make several calls, and I would prefer that we had an immediate network that would make that possible. But I think part of that is it's just building the infrastructure so that can happen. And so I'm constantly trying to find out, okay, what are the resources that you have in your church, you know? And so that's why, you know, if I can't find it in your, you know, within the Christian church, I've developed relationships with imams, and I've discovered that our Muslim brothers and sisters are extremely resourceful. Masjid al-Islam, those brothers have been extremely resourceful. Masjid Muhammad, that imam has been extremely resourceful. And so it is a matter of just thinking outside the box, you know, and just trying to come up with innovative solutions. I think the other thing I would say, just generally in terms of what's like really needed, is regardless of how much money you have, like we all need to be able to show up healthy. You know, I've seen, you know, VIs crash out. I've seen pastors crash out, marriages fall apart because priorities are out of line, and because we're not in a whole healthy place ourselves. You know, doctors, people with degrees. I went to Banneker High School. That means everybody I know is from a neighborhood in D.C., but everybody I know also has degrees on their walls. I'm looking at my peers right now, dealing with serious depression, suicidal ideation, people that got everything. And I'm looking at people like my nephew, like people that, like my brother was incarcerated, some of his peers like really, really struggle. And the common like thing that's really, that we all share is a lack of like wholeness and healing inside. I
get it.
And so that's major.
Yeah.
And so that's why we started the Heal the Healer initiative, because I realized you know, I need to take care of my mental health. I need to take care of my physical health. I need to make sure that I have integrity means you're whole. Before you do anything else out here, integrity means you're whole from within yourself.
So I'm going to cut you off because we're just about out of time.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. And I wanted to
You asked the preacher, so the preacher's
know.
got to start
I wanted to get
preaching.
Kristy back in here again because, you know, we've talked about the data that you have seen. And you know, what does that data really tell you all about what's working? And are there new things that you're looking at now that, you know, if a report comes out next year, what are some of the new things that you all are following or looking at?
So part of our role, we do the number crunching, but we also do literature reviews. We stay on top of the research in terms of what is working to reduce, in particular, violent crime. There are a number of things. You know, the principles are you focus on the high-risk people, you focus on the high-risk places. So for high-risk people, the things that really have had impact are what's called a group violence reduction strategy, and I'll come back to that one. Other things on the list are cognitive behavioral therapy, because what you're saying, a lot of this is mental health issues, street outreach, so and violence interruption would fall into that category, and especially when you combine street outreach with other strategies, it's even more effective. In terms of, and also for our young people, and I love the example about if the kid has COVID, you can't just treat the kid, you have to treat the whole family. For youth who are involved in the system, it's family programming. You cannot just help the youth. The effective strategies for youth is you help whoever is in that household, because the youth is being influenced by likely the household or their direct community. For the hot places, the focus is on hotspots policing. And that sounds a little alarming to some people, but it's with community buy-in. So it's not just police going in there, sort of bogarting, doing their thing. They're having community meetings and consulting and doing things appropriately and certainly fair. And also blight nuisance abatement. Let's clean up the community, bring the community together, allow them to have a sense of ownership and pride in where they live. So those some of the hot things. But going back to group violence reduction strategy, 4 key components, and we've seen like 50% reductions in shootings with correct implementation. So you identify the high-risk people, who's likely to be involved in gun violence, either as a perpetrator or a victim. You respectfully communicate to them, and it's not just law enforcement communicating, it's faith leaders, it's violence interrupters, law enforcement coming together to communicate, we're concerned about you, we're here to help you, and then you actually prioritize them for that help. You're not just submitting a referral, you're getting them an appointment to whatever they need, and you're helping to stabilize them. But at the end of the day, you have sort of the carrot and the stick. If they don't comply, if they continue to engage, you know, there is a role for law enforcement to incapacitate. So those are the key strategies.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we are pretty much out of time, but I have one question that I did want to make sure I got in before we finished. And, you know, you're studying, doing the research, you know, just looking at those numbers sometimes can sometimes be overwhelming. And in the work that you all are doing, I know it's a real challenge. But, you know, in a few words, and I'm going to start with you, Eric, and give the man of faith the last, but what gives you hope?
Conversations like this, I think talking to people from different walks of this work, but still have the same goal to, you know, people that care about the community, born and raised Washingtonians, I think. And this also, pastor like this God. And so I just believe that, one, I believe that I was put here to do what I'm doing. And I could have easily been gone a whole lot of different times and a whole lot of things in my life that I was involved with on the street and in jail, but I came out here and I just believe this is my mission to help turn around my city, particularly people coming home from jail, as well as our youth.
Wonderful. Thomas?
What gives me hope is those of us who are up here on this platform. You know, there are communities all over the country that have dealt with some of the challenges that we have dealt with. I think what gives me hope is that there are folks that have done this work together for quite some time that's committed to it. And to the extent that we double down and work even harder together, I think we can meet this moment. But again, I think that we have still resources and committed individuals in this city that is disproportionate to other cities. So I just think we're uniquely positioned to get through this current current moment.
Wonderful. Kristy, I'm going to.
The numbers are giving me hope. On a personal level, and this just came to mind, I live in Ward 7. I feel like I live in a safe neighborhood, but I'm in close proximity to maybe neighborhoods that don't feel as safe. In 2023, at night, I would hear gunshots at least 3 times a week, close to my neighborhood. I don't hear that anymore. I don't have to explain or try to explain away to my daughter what that sound is. So that's giving me hope.
Wow. Likewise. Reverend Golson?
I want to echo what you said. I have the same experience. I'm thinking back to 2022, 2023, and you made me think about that. That's definitely something that gives me hope as well. I think in addition to that, what gives me hope is I'm constantly surprised by the people who are willing to actually lend their voice and their expertise to the solutions. Even this panel, this forum, came as a surprise to me, that the Public Welfare Foundation decided to partner with DC's best journalists, like a true icon in this community, to make this.
I was going to turn around and say
truly, to give platform to like our best Black communications journalism institution in this city, to say, hey, how do we shape this narrative around what works? That gives me hope that we can actually counter this narrative, that we can actually get our story out there, we can that prevention actually works. That prevention doesn't belong at the bottom of the list, but prevention belongs at the top of the list. And the fact that this came together today in this way, it gives me hope. So I'm thankful, I'm just thankful. And I'm thankful to God that we're still here. So many things have tried to crush us in this city. And I just thank God we're still here.
Well, in closing, I'll just say what gives me hope is that you all still have hope and that this community still has hope and everybody's still working towards it. And as another great friend of ours or person we know often said was, keep hope alive.
Yes.
And hope is still alive. So with that, I want to thank each one of you, Thomas Penny, Kristy Love, Reverend Golson, of course, Eric Weaver for being with us, and thank you in the audience for joining us today for Let's Talk on WIN TV. If you want to reach out for more information, we will have information posted for you all from the Public Welfare Foundation as well as the Washington Informer WIN TV. So with that, I want to thank the team that was here with us. I want to thank Public Welfare Foundation for sponsoring this event, and don't give up hope.